Hello, welcome to Code or Not to Code. I'm Mila Eva. I'm really happy to be here today. Um, we're getting closer to Christmas, and a couple of weeks ago, Stefan and I got together and we decided that we're going to build an Advent QRlendar, which is kind of like an Advent calendar, but obviously instead of chocolate, you have QR codes behind each door that you can fill yourself. It's a DIY calendar, and I'm really excited about how far we got in the last couple of weeks. I'm really new to coding, so this is one of my first projects. But obviously, this is why I have Stefan here to help me out with the difficult bits.
Well, at least he's trying.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Are you ready to do this, Stefan?
I am. I'm ready. Well, actually, almost. Just muted my phone. Now I'm ready. All right. Perhaps let's always one final time. Let's have a look at where we ended last time.
Sure.
Let's fire up our Blazor WebAssembly application. We have our Advent Calendar page and our QR codes page. In our QR codes page, we can enter QR codes. And if we jump back to the QRlendar page, then we have our, I'm still not sure about the name, like our top page, which has the doors, which we can cut out. And then when we open them, they should reveal the underlying page where we then have the QR codes located. And last time we took care of a bit of formatting and also introduced have you introduced the shuffle button last? No, I think the shuffle button was like two sessions ago.
2 sessions ago, I think so, yeah. But the print button, I believe, is new.
Print button is new. And if we hit the print button, that invokes a JavaScript that leads us to that page. And actually, yeah, so what we saw was this. And we had so we had two issues. First of all, the second page with the QR codes doesn't have the same formatting as the first page does, so they wouldn't really be matching. And the second problem is we didn't see the background image. We couldn't figure out where the background image is missing, and it's actually one of the print options, which per default is deactivated to enable background graphics. And when we hit that button, yay!
I remember that from last time. I couldn't figure out why it wasn't showing, and then, it's just in the printing options. Fabulous.
I believe my internet is currently not the most stable. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. But my camera is loading, at least from my point of view. Can you also see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay,
it's
then
a
it
little
should work.
pixely, but
okay, then yeah.
yeah.
Let me know if connection seems flaky.
Yeah, will do.
And so from the design and actually from the print perspective, we now have to make the second page match the first page. And also, what a viewer in like 2 or 3 sessions ago mentioned or asked if we are aware of nullable reference types.
Yeah.
And we are having a look at these today as well, because we do have a couple of warnings. But before we jump into the code, I will highlight this message from Friesen6. I think you are somewhat of a regular, aren't you? We have welcomed you multiple times. He says, hi, thank you much for joining. Or, sorry, I say, or she says hi, or they say hi would be better, sorry. I hope. Oh, this was a bit of a faux pas. Okay. Yeah, let's get into something I have more idea of. Let's go into code. And let's have a look at the nullable reference types. Because if we actually build our solution, if I run our build, we have 15 warnings.
Wow.
And all of these warnings are related to some dereference of a possibly null reference. it's not the same warnings. There's also converting null, literal, or possible null value to non-nullable type. So it's a lot about nulls. And this is a C#8 feature, which is called nullable reference types. And let me stop the application and do a build so that we also get the warnings in Visual Studio to see where they come from. I'm not sure where this error is where we have this error, but here we have all the null reference type warnings, and I just click the first one. And if we have a closer look at this, so where are we? We are at the QR code box. This is, let's go back to let's load the site again. So on the QRlendar page, if we enter QR code, or if we enter a text that we render to a QR code, this is one QR code box. In order to render this image, we use first of all a service that creates us this PNG as a byte array. Then we convert this into a stream and send that to JavaScript, or send that to the browser via JavaScript. And for that, we have several modules. So we inject the JavaScript runtime. We also inject our QR code service that creates this QR code. But also from the caller of this component, we also get the door injected, because the door holds the URL, but also the number of the door. And if we have a lot of underlines here, and all of these warnings here are actually null reference types warning, because we haven't annotated our types correctly. If I would do a question mark here in order to tell the compiler that this could be null, the warning goes away. But yes.
So what will happen if we just ignore the warning, and if it really was null? Because what is it warning us from? What will happen in the worst case scenario?
So if I would, for example, comment out this line where we actually set the module, and so by default, since this IJS object reference is an interface, and this interface will be implemented by a class. So the actual class that implements this interface per default is null. So what I have here is basically writing the same as assigning null to it. So that's a null reference. It doesn't point to anything in memory. And now if we try to dereference it by writing, let's click that, then we see where it's in use, by accessing a member with the dot. In this case, we access the invoke void async method. We will get, let's have a look, an exception. Let's give that a try. We go to the page. Let's create a QR code. Let's go to here. And now we see down there an unhandled error has occurred. If we go to our DevTools and have a look, what we actually get, it says that's the infamous argument null exception. And the argument null exception always occurs when you try to dereference something which hasn't been initialized to an actual instance. So if it's pointing to null, if it's pointing to nothing, and you try to dereference it, it will throw the argument null exception at runtime. And the nullable reference type feature is producing warnings and giving us a hint that not necessarily have to, but potentially could throw a nullable reference, a argument null exception at runtime. And this is what the nullable reference type feature is all about. So it encourages us to annotate all of our types. So in this case, since we do not, we could also have a constructor. And in the constructor, we could potentially initialize the module to something. I don't really have an instance that implements this, but let's assume I have some instance, some class, which would implement that. And if we would write code like this, we would now ensure that if this object is created, this module is actually initialized. And then the warning would go away because we made sure that this is initialized. But without an explicit constructor here, it's basically the same as writing an empty constructor, which would initialize everything to null. So this is actually going back to the code that we had. If we instantiate the QR code type, both of these fields will be null. No, actually, what element reference is actually a struct. So a struct is a little bit different. A struct is a value type, and value types always have a value. So this is why we won't get the warning here. But we do get it on the interface, because the interface could be implemented by a class. It could also be implemented by a struct, which is a value type, which always has a value. But if we if we write the interface type here, this gets boxed and is then basically a reference type again. Long story short, if we have either an interface or a class here, then per default this will be null if we do not explicitly assign it to something. And in order to fix this warning here, because it says the non-nullable module, so this type, when exiting the constructor of this type, the default constructor, this module will be null. And in order to annotate this correctly, we now put a question mark here. And we say, okay, after the instance of this type has been created, the module is null or may be null. And code later on needs to initialize it. And we actually have that here now. So because we annotated this now as a nullable reference type, we told the compiler, okay, this could be null. If I now would remove this code, the initialization, now I get the warning here. And this is exactly where we got the argument null exception when we ran the application. We got it exactly here. And now this is a helpful warning because this tells me, hey, this is not initialized. It doesn't say it necessarily has to be null, but it could be null. It says module may be null here. We have a possible null reference argument this may throw. And if I comment this code back in, where we actually set this module to something, now the warning goes away because the compiler now knows, okay, in this code, when dereferencing the module here, which actually has now been annotated with the question mark, so it may be null, will be initialized before that line actually here. So that's fine, and it doesn't give the warning anymore.
And so we've got this warning at quite a lot of places. So can we just put the question mark at all of these places? Or is there like a better way to do it?
We could, for example, now we also have some properties here. So we could also put question marks here, here, and here.
Oh, I think at the door you put it at the wrong place.
Yes, that's right. I need to put it on a type, not on the name. But now we get the warnings when we actually dereference those properties. Because if I try to access the URL here, or if I try to dereference the QR code service here, it may be null because we annotated it as null.
Yeah.
But we also have additional annotations on these types. So that both the JS runtime and also the QR code service, we actually inject via dependency injection. And if we do not have these types, if the dependency injection engine if the dependency injection container doesn't have these resolvable so that they can be injected, it would actually throw an exception somewhere else. Let's simulate that. If we go to the program and comment out the services that we register here and run the application. And let's go to the QRlendar service. We now again get an unhandled exception, but this will now be a different one. This will be cannot provide a value for property QRlendar service. So this is no null reference or no argument null exception. It's actually a different exception from dependency injection. So in that case, we actually have some mechanism in place. We see the page doesn't even load if we click here. We have some other mechanism in place that ensures that these values are not null, so that they are actually set to something. And this is why we could actually ignore the warning here for those types that we inject, because we have different facilities in place that ensure that they are actually set. And so for these, we can actually ignore the warning and mark them as non-nullable and suppress the warning by explicitly assigning null to them. But if we now get the warning here because we try to assign null to something which has been declared as nullable because we have no question mark here, but we can suppress this warning with the exclamation mark. So I'm not telling the compiler, okay, I know what I'm doing. I have some other facility in place that ensures that it's not null, and I will suppress the warning here. And we could do the same for the inject down here as well.
Okay.
This is something very special for Blazor applications that support this inject attribute. For regular command line application, you don't really have this facility by default, so you have other mechanisms to ensure that something is not null.
Nice.
But what about a parameter? About the parameter, I'm not all too sure, because the parameter actually, this may be null. Because if we go to the parent page that actually instantiates this QR code box, no, that's not here, that's in the QRlendar, yes. So we have here for each loop that creates this QR code boxes where we then assign the door.
Sorry, I'm not sure if it's on my side or on your end, but I kind of your image is kind of like a little difficult to see, and I also don't really see. I don't think we jumped with you. I'm also connected to the to the live share, and I think in the live share we're in the right spot right now, but not on the stream. I'm not sure. Or where did you want to?
Let me briefly restart my stuff here. I'll be right back.
Okay. Ooh, it was exciting. Solo stream, just merely Eva doing her thing. Wow.
I'm trying to
if I try to finish it by myself today and stream every day for 1.5 hours, I might be ready for Christmas 2025. So now I see you a lot better. So now it's a lot better, and I also can see the split screens and everything. Perfect.
So my internet isn't the best today. I guess afterwards, my router seems to be in need of a reboot.
Ooh.
Yes. So what we do here, we assign the door here, which then gets set basically here. But what if we forget to assign the door here? We now get the warning because of the editor required that we set here. But it's only a warning. But again, we have a mechanism in place that gives us a warning now at a different place. So in here, we could also argue to suppress the null warning because of the editor required. Well, actually, I'm not sure if the editor required is now a Visual Studio thing, or if we would also get this in the command line. I want to find that out.
Yeah, interesting.
Because if we actually also get it at the command line, I would be fine suppressing it, because we can later on then enable that we have warnings as errors, so we cannot build our solution if there is any warning, to ensure that every problem has been resolved. And we actually do get the warning. Component expected a value for the parameter door. And if we have later on warnings as errors, we can't build and everything is fine. So I would argue because again, we have the editor required facility in place, we can suppress the warning, because we would now get the warning at a different place. And let's fix the warning, and now it's good. And I think that's the concept. We now go ahead and do this for the remaining, I think, 10 issues or something. So let's jump to the error list. We again have the module here. So this is again nullable because we don't have any constructor in place that sets it. The JS runtime is set from the outside, so we have a facility in place here. The QR code service is injected, so again, we have a facility in place here. Suppress it. The question mark, the exclamation point is actually the null forgiving operator to suppress the warning. And again, the door, we require it, so we can suppress the warning here too. And we have a warning here now, because value, if we have a look at the value of the changed argument, that actually could be null. So we actually need to ensure here that this value is not null. We can do this by a null check. We could say e.value is not null, and only do this code if it is not null.
Smart.
But but in that case, if it is null, so the warning goes away, we no longer have a null reference exception, but we wouldn't get any feedback. Nothing would happen if we try to change the URL, which would also be weird. So we could argue to be a little bit more aggressive and actually do it the other way around and say, if it is null, then we throw an exception. Let's throw let's throw an argument exception, where we could say name of has no value. So I'm using an interpolated string here, and what this translates to is basically exactly without the name ofs basically get converted into the type that they, or the name of the type or the member that they refer to. So this would now be basically this string. So we would get a warning with the message changed event args has no value.
That's pretty cool. I have a question. In the brackets, you sort of wrote it out like is not null or is null. So what's the difference between like actually is or like the equal or
yes.
exclamation
so
point equal?
How can I best showcase this? Yes. So if we write equals equals, you mean that, yeah?
Yeah.
This is actually invoking the equality operator if it is overloaded. Now, value is of type object. Object is a reference type, and object does not overload the equality operator. So if the type is object, then this and this is exactly the same. However, if we would have a type that actually does overload the equality operator, I'm simulating this by creating a record. Let's create a record type. Let's make it a record class, my record. And a record class in .NET creates a lot of code. We can have a look at that if we put this to sharplab. Sharplab.io. It basically compiles and decompiles our code, and we can then have a look what the compiler does behind the scenes. So if we put this code here, we will see that a lot of code for our my record is created. And also, both the inequality and the equality operators are overloaded. And if I now for this type, for the my record type, would write equals null, we actually do a little bit more than a null check, because we would now call into this operator and then execute this code. So we would first run this code and basically have the null check here. Here is then the actual null check. So it's a little bit later. So it does a little bit more, ever so slightly more than a pure null check. And by using the is here, this is pattern matching, and this is the is pattern. We can also negate the is pattern with is not null, which would be semantically, or which would be logically somewhat the same like is not equal. But this is not null or is null pattern ensures that we actually only do a null check regardless of whether this equality operator for this type has been overloaded or not.
Okay, interesting. And does that have performance benefits, or what sort of?
It has a performance benefit ever so slightly.
Okay, but it's just like best practice, or it's like good design or whatever.
Best practice. It's the equality operator should be implemented correctly, and then it doesn't make any difference. And the performance difference is neglectable. I actually have a talk. Null and void actually have a benchmark somewhere. Let me briefly find that. Resources, null benchmark, yes. So again, I do here benchmarks on a record type. And if we write the equality operator, which has been overloaded for the record type, the null check takes 0.2 nanoseconds. So that's a lot. That's like little.
Yeah.
And if we do the pattern matching, it's not really measurable. I guess let's put this number. This is more.
That's pretty
so
cool.
It goes into that direction. So it's 0.0076 nanoseconds. The difference is sub nanoseconds, so it's quite neglectable. But yes, because there is an additional operator invoked, there is a difference. But it is neglectable.
Fair enough. And would I also, one more question. So if this is value, if it's like a different application and we would want to check whether this value was something else, like whether this value was 5, can you also then write it out? Is 5 or is not 5? Or would that then not work like this? Yeah.
I can. The thing now is the compiler will generate quite some code here, because this is an object, and an object could be anything. It doesn't necessarily need to be an integer. So this is why the compiler needs to put some code in place. If we were to write this here, let me respawn sharplab. Let's put in an object value, and let's return Boolean, and let's say, okay, return value is 5, this pattern. And what the compiler now actually generates is it first tries to validate, is this really an integer? And if it is, we can now, this is technically an unboxing operation. Because converting int is a value type, it's a struct. And if we put a value type into an object, this is actually a boxing operation. I'm not go all too much into detail. But we then, out of this box, grab the integer, if we know it actually is an integer, and can now check if this integer is 5. But we first need to do the type check if it really is what we think it is. And if we would write, this would work for any number. If we would write pointer 0f, which is on float. So let's put it in here, .cof. Now the compiler checks, is this a float? And if it is a float, check if that float has the value 5. And it also works for double. If I remove the, because 0.5 is a literal for double, the compiler knows, okay, I now check double, and it's the same like pattern. And this is one example of pattern matching. And most of the time the compiler creates more code than we actually write here, because there are assumptions in place. So this is both a type check and also a value check.
Super cool. Thank you for explaining that. Sorry for hijacking your nullable warning session.
This is what we're here for. This is what we're here for. And what I realized now, if I do a value is null check here, we no longer have the warning. No, I thought we still have the warning, because the toString method here. So we no longer have the warning here because we checked that value is not null, but we have the warning now on toString because toString may return null. So I should actually annotate the string here as well. Now the warning goes away, but we could set null here. So what I'll be doing is actually moving this to the top, checking if text is null, then we throw, and if it isn't, we set the QR code. But we get a warning here because we potentially dereference something which isn't null. So there is the null conditional operator. Okay, that's a lot. Perhaps we need to do it as a dedicated video on this.
Yeah, definitely.
Where we can write before we dereference via the dot, we can write question mark dot. And now this only dereferences and invokes the toString method if this is not null. So it's like a null safe invocation. And if this would be null, we would assign null to text here. So basically there is now two ways that the text will be null. It's either if the value is null, or if the value is not null, but toString returns null. And so we basically do two null checks here, more or less. And now we are sure there is no null, so this will work fine.
Fabulous.
Okay, a lot of null.
Yeah, I think maybe potentially the screen is again a little frozen on the stream. I don't know.
I'm sorry for that. I will briefly. Yeah. Let me know when it's back.
In the Christmas sessions, I said I would bring out my ukulele in those bits, right, and play Christmas songs. And we actually tried this, but the microphone isn't good enough, so you can't really hear any tunes, which is a shame. One day I'll have the right setup to have the intro music. But I've got my Christmas sweater, so that's something.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, that's
Pickle Rick
Christmas.
It's that time of the year. Yeah, perfect. I think now.
We're back?
Back. Yep.
All right. So let's quickly, I think this was the most interesting concept. Let's quickly fix the rest of the null warnings. Yeah, for example, here, we do set module here, but we don't know in this context that module has been set before we invoke this method.
Okay.
So in that case, we actually have code in place that ensures that it isn't null, and we are aware of the order of calling things. So we can suppress the warning here as well by placing a exclamation mark before the invocation, which basically tells the compiler, we have code in place that ensures that this is not null. We know better than you, basically. And I think we only have a handful of warnings left. Where's my errors list? Did I close it? I closed it. No. And I kind of lost my error list. Let's bring it back. There it is. So one more time, we have an int checked, so we are sure that this isn't null. Three warnings left. This is basically the same pattern that we had already. We can do checking here. We know we have the int checked, so we can suppress this here. We know we have the int checked, so we can suppress the warning here. And again, we have code in place that ensures that this isn't null, so we can suppress the warning here. And I guess this should be it.
Ooh.
So if we now run the build, we have 0 warnings, 0 errors. And now we could go ahead and set warnings as errors so that we cannot build the solution or the project if we have any warning. Be very strict about it.
Wow.
And
do you often do that?
For every project that I actually create a NuGet package for, I do warnings as errors in release configuration.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and go to the CS Purge. I go to Properties. Then we can go, where is this? I think it's in Build, right? And we can set tweet warnings as errors, but I usually do it only for release build. So I now tick the mark, tweet warnings as errors. And what we have now in the CS Purge file is, let's clean that up a little. To make it more apparent. So if we are in release configuration, we will treat warnings as errors. Now let's actually bring one warning back. And if we try to .NET build the project per default, it's in debug configuration. So we just get a warning. But when I actually want to publish the project, I should build it in release configuration. Release configuration does a lot of code optimization, which would make debugging it harder, but actually makes the application faster. So for local debugging scenarios, we build it in debug. For actually putting it out to the world, we build it in release because there is a lot of code optimizations. But in release mode, it will now actually build failed. So I cannot .NET run it in release mode because we have a build error. This won't work. And I usually do this for all of the projects that I actually then create NuGet packages or other publishable artifacts of in order to ensure that there are no issues. Yeah, and we have the warning also in the editor. So let's fix that, and we can now come to the second part, the design phase. Ooh. Before we go to that, I'm not sure if I pronounced the name correctly. I'll put in the message. Tikan, I hope I pronounce it correctly, says good morning. Hello, Tikan.
Good morning. Hope you guys are well. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Just at the right time as we're going to the styling session, because that's the thing that both Stefan and I have absolutely no idea how to do. But yeah, let's see if we can fix it. So what was the issue that we had last time?
Let's bring up so when we try to, let's actually bring up some QR codes. And if we try to print the page, the second page is not really matching the design of the first page. So if we try to print them and then glue them on top of each other, the doors that we would cut out wouldn't reveal the QR code fully or show like the QR code from a different one. So we need to make them match and actually gluable. Yeah.
Yeah. Gluable is, I think, the correct expression. Fabulous. Okay, so I think because we had a little look earlier, and I think what we sort of figured out is that we have like because we have like boxes in the front page, I guess. And they are differently styled than I believe the boxes in the other table. Is that right?
Yes, because we have basically two tables. We have the table image table and the table QR code table.
Yeah.
So this is the table image table and the table QR code table. And for the image table, we have a table data per box, and they span with these with these classes. But for our QR code box, we put this into a separate component. We don't have this in place. So I guess what we could do first is applying the same style and span to that.
Yeah.
So should I go ahead and copy that over? And
Yeah.
then you
Copy it
take
to the
over
other
the
file.
CSS part. So
Oh God. Oh no.
I will move this down here. And we wrap now the elements into a span.
In last
to
session, I
make-
think we also discussed what the difference between a diff and a span is, right? Briefly.
I forgot again.
Yeah, I forgot as well. But if you're interested, go to the free session. No, I think basically it doesn't make too much of a difference, but I guess it's used for tonight. I actually can't remember. Was that the late session that we did like super late and we were both super tired? It was fun.
I guess so.
But it's all gone now. Okay.
Now having created the same structure, we also need to copy over some CSS because we have isolated CSS in place that we can then edit. So we require the box and the door CSS, which I will grab from here and put it to the box. No, it's actually the other way around, right? We have the box here and apply the same style here. And we also have the table data and the door that we move over. And I guess now we can play with the CSS for this door in order to make it match, because we now have not the perfect, they're not lapping over it. So I guess it's now CSS time. Perhaps to make it a little bit more easy, I will apply the same trick that we did last time. To go to the page. That's the QRlendar page. And mark mark the both tables as absolute. That will be here. No, it will be here. A lot of CSSs. And we go to the table image. That actually, I think we can set the table, right? That's position absolute, if I recall correctly. And now this should like overlap. Yes, and we see they don't quite match. So we need to make them match now.
Okay, how do we do that?
Let me also, I'm not sure if this actually really matches. I'll do one thing. I will remove the heading for now and start the application one more time to make sure that we got a perfect overlap. Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, so it doesn't
I
really
can't.
match. We have a bit of a diff.
So I can see it on the stream. Can
Uh-oh, am I gone again?
no? I think. I mean, it's. I think it's just slow. Maybe potentially it's there now, and it looks super trippy.
Yes.
It looks like when you're drunk and you sort of print out the calendar and you see everything double. Okay, but okay, so how can we move them now? We have to go. So did you put it? Which one did raise a
So we need to
CSS?
update
Yeah.
the CSS of the boxes. So the boxes are those elements that contain the QR codes that are on the bottom page.
Okay, so I guess on the bottom page, and that is the one that's slightly down. So do we need to move it up, or am I seeing it? I'm really confused if it's the table image that's up, or the QR code table that's up. You know what I mean?
It's the QR code table that yes. I'm actually not sure either. Let's try. Perhaps let's change the font size of the one here. Okay, so the smaller 7 is the lower is the QR code,
QR code.
and that's so I think the QR code is a bit too high.
So would it okay. So would it make sense? So we only want to move the one. How can we do that? Would it make sense to sort of have a class that's like QR code that we can move around? Or do we already have something like that? Because I think the box is from the table image, right?
Yeah, well, they do have the same name, yes, but since we have isolated CSS, now the
Okay.
QR code, the QR
Ah,
code box, the box of the QR code
yes.
box actually only applies to the one, and the box of the other applies only to the other, because this is the thing about isolated CSS. We can have the same name, but then implement them differently.
Okay. And can you also just remind me one more time? What is the box? What is the table data? And what is the door?
Let's have a look. So we have the one of our QR code box. So we have yes, one QR code box consists of a table data, which has the type box, and then we have, depending if we have a QR code set or not, we have a span, which is a door, which then holds either the image or the number.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, fabulous. So I guess we can just okay. Wait. So I would probably try and move the whole box. Does that make sense? Or should
Let's
I
give that a
move?
try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do we move it with, I guess, margin again, right?
I would go with margin first, yeah.
Margin. And let's try with is that 1 centimeter or something? Or should we go in pixels? I don't know.
Oh, what do you think? Let's give it a try.
Okay, so it's
Because I'm not sure.
It's first. Let's just do a layout first. That's what you did last time, and I really like it because then I can see. So we've got top, right, bottom, left. We only want to move it up, correct?
Or down?
I'm not
sure.
I think down.
Let's
Yeah,
give
down.
it a
I'm
try.
so confused.
No, actually,
Okay.
let's give it a try and see what's happening. Then
Let's
it
just
becomes
try
my
this.
parent.
This first.
I add a semicolon and save. Now this should apply, and it changes nothing.
Fabulous. Okay, cool. Let's
but
be more extreme.
perhaps because of the padding of the door, maybe I guess this may be more significant.
Okay.
So perhaps
Oh,
let's
that's
have a
good.
look at these
So
margins.
I'm gonna try and change this to 50.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, so that did something. So you can bin this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fabulous.
It actually is the lower one, not the higher one. Okay, I was wrong.
What is it? Oh my god. So we need to, okay. Okay, so what did that do? So this is like a trial and error situation. If any of our viewers have more experience in this, please do give us a hint. But okay, so wait, so that was a bit too extreme and it moved to the side. So that makes me think that I'm gonna have to adapt two different values. So I'm just gonna play around and do 25 top. Ooh, I can see it in real time. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's the great thing about Hot Reload. It applies to changes.
That's so cool. But that also went in the wrong direction. I'm so confused now.
I think we need to lower the top padding.
Lower
if I got
it.
correctly.
Okay. Let's see. Yes.
Or do we actually have to remove it entirely?
0.
Okay.
Minus. Is there -1? -10? Does that work?
Perhaps
No.
we also do no. That okay. That's weird.
Shame. Okay. And this is bottom.
But I guess,
can we add bottom? Maybe 30. No.
Ooh, yes.
Yes, perfect. Hey, that looks really good. I'm really pleased with that. That's like perfectly aligned. Amazing. I'm so impressed. Usually I just destroy stuff, but this actually looks good.
And now for the content. So the QR code needs to be more
table date. That's the table data.
Let's also try the door, but this time the padding, so the distance from the border, because our border is like the cutout thing.
That is correct. And we need to get it more to the left. So we've got top, right, bottom, left. So if we lower this.
Ooh, yes.
Okay, so but the numbers are super far right, but the QR code looks slightly better. But not great, right? Was that too much?
Well, we could. Let's optimize for the QR code first, and then we can style the numbers differently.
Okay. Is it? That looks slightly better. Is it a little further? Does it need to go down a little bit, or am I imagining
things? It's all right, but maybe it should be a little bit bigger.
Bigger? How can we get it bigger?
Width
and height sounds good.
Let's try that.
Let's do 5. 5 meters. That's good. See, this is how I destroy stuff. Oh wow. This is more like my style. Perfect. Okay, let's do 4.
Perhaps middle, 4.5.
4.5. Okay. That's it. 4.5. What is going on?
Now we need to. I guess the size is cool, but we need to center it again. So I guess we need to play with the margins and paddings again.
But isn't it because the borders are further apart? It's not
that's right, but I think we can actually get rid of the borders then. Let's get rid of the borders afterwards. Actually,
okay.
let's get rid of the borders right away.
Right away, yeah.
Because we don't really need the borders for the QR codes. So let's get rid of the border starts 0 here.
And the border here, right? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I want to get rid of that. And this removes it not for all. Because we need to kill it here too.
Yes, perfect. Okay, cool.
Let's focus on the content. Yeah.
But I'm still slightly confused that it's not. So the one on the right seems way out, whereas the one on the top left, the QR code, I mean, looks it's at least in the door, inside of the door.
Well, it may be a consecutive error, or like a combination, because if like it's box and then we have another one, so it basically adds up, and then the diff increases. If you know what I mean. So I can imagine if we fix that, then this will fix.
So I just want to see what happens if we have absolutely no margin, just because I'm curious. That looks better. Okay, but we need to get it up slightly. So we need So how do we do that though? We need more margin on the bottom. That's it, right?
I think the margin is fine. I would play with the padding
Okay.
because we don't really have a border anymore. We don't care about the border. We care about the content. So I think padding is the way to go. Or
So it's just
we remove the padding, or we set the padding to 0 and only care about the margin. But since we have no border, I don't think we need a combination.
yeah. Can I delete margin then?
Sure.
Nice. Okay. Padding. So we need less padding at the top. No.
Oops. There we go.
Cool. We need even less, right?
Ooh.
This looks cool. I love it.
That's sweet, and it takes good. I think we could even make it bigger because I think it could.
Okay.
Because I think we could, because we do have a bit of a, in the QR code itself we have a bit of a border.
Yeah.
So I guess the QR code could fill the box.
Let's try. Okay. And at the bottom I also want less. And at the left I also want less.
Oops.
Oh, that's the right, isn't it? Fuck. Sorry. Oh. I'm sorry that I swore live on air.
Ooh.
Yes, this looks good.
That's awesome. Okay, that's a QR code.
I'm happy with this.
And
okay,
but
the table data are the numbers, right?
The number, yeah. Let's have a look at the. Well, we could. So our QR code is cool. Perhaps let's create 2 different CSS classes. So we have a door. Let's do a door QR and a door number. And I will copy this. Let's have a door QR and a door number, and let's now get the number right. And
yes,
then
okay.
I think we are quite there, aren't we?
Hopefully, let's see how we. Okay, we need to get it top right. Do we need less padding here? Maybe.
Let's give it a try. That
went well.
Nothing.
Oh no, damn it. Okay, let's try 0, 0, 0, 0. Let's start with a blank canvas. Let's see where we are. Okay, that did something. So I guess if top, right, bottom, left. Let's just go crazy here. Yes. Let's go even crazier. Let's go not as crazy as that. It's still, is that? Oh, that's good enough. I'll go with that.
I would say so, yeah.
And so we shifted the number to the right by changing the padding on the left. So I guess if I want to get it down, I have to change the padding on the top. And I'm just gonna do this. Didn't work. Let's try 50.
Ooh.
Woo!
Sweet.
Genius.
Cool.
Nice. Proud of myself.
Well, I guess one issue that we kind of have is that we need to do a lot of pixeling and stuff. I think this may be related that we are using absolute layouts. And this only now, well, we highly optimize this for our A4 format, which is, how big is that? 297 millimeters by 200, I always forget.
We have it somewhere in our code because for the image, we applied those measurements, right? When we load the background image.
There it is. So we have the width is 210 millimeters and the height is 297 millimeters. Okay.
So again can't see it on the stream, but
Uh-oh.
I'm not, oh, it's there. It's just super slow. There you go.
So that's 21 centimeters by 29.7 centimeters, and this is the A4 format. So we quite optimized for that. This would be, I think, for a future for the next year's iteration. We can support more formats and make this more relative. So we can maybe we have a range of formats to select, and then the absolute format should take care of everything. But for that, I definitely need to improve my CSS knowledge. And yeah, this will take roughly a year, so that's good.
Yeah, so we'll be ready for next Christmas with our refactored QRlendar. I like this to be like like an annual thing. Oh, that would be really lovely. And then fun. In 5 years we'll have like a 3D printed situation going on. I have a question though. So now we aligned the QR codes and the doors and everything looks beautiful, but does it still look like that when we try and print it?
Ooh, yes. Let's give that a try. I will bring the print buttons back. And let's give that a try. It's not.
If there are any viewers, do you guys already see it? Is it like on my side? Because I think I'm again stuck on the previous page.
That's me. Sorry, internet's not the greatest today.
But now we already had the spoiler that it doesn't line up.
Let me know when my screen is back.
Yeah, I still see the previous, unfortunately. Ooh, something's changing. Yay! So okay. I see the PDF view. No, the PDF is gone now. Now I see the null check benchmarks.cs that we had before.
Are we back on the... Oh, it's really bad. Sorry for that. Internet, no. Well, it's not the internet. It's my internet connection, to be precise.
It's because there's so many people watching our stream in your area that, the internet connection fails you. There's no one watching in my area, so it's all good. Okay, so
no live streaming for a year and haven't had this issue yet. Okay, no, that's a new.
Well, otherwise, you need to face new problems and issues in order to grow. So this is why the universe is giving you the opportunity to learn.
I don't feel like growing. I feel like crying.
Oh. So now I see on the right-hand side the calendar again, the absolute view, and on the left-hand side the code, which is, but it's a little bit pixely, I think.
Perhaps it gets back to better resolution in a bit, but yeah, it seems to recover. I hope. But yeah, if we print it, it doesn't look all great. I'll actually let me add this at the bottom. And no, this doesn't work like that. Of course not. No, let's add it here. Can you see the print preview?
Yes, I can see it, and the QR code is sort of pulled a little bit. It's not.
Yes.
And that's really bad because then you can't scan it. They're really fragile like that.
I'm wondering if we have some, because we did experiment with media print CSS last time.
Yeah.
We have something in place, but we don't really. So I'm quite uncertain about why there is why this is distorted or differently scaled.
That is something that we've not encountered before, right?
Just to, not really, no. Just to make sure, I'll restart the application. Well, I doubt that this will resolve something, but just to make sure that it isn't some caching. And print, and it isn't, unfortunately.
That would have been nice.
I'm not sure. I'll just give one thing a try. If we change from padding to margin, well, this shouldn't make any difference in our scenario, but who knows? No, it made it worse. Okay, so much for that.
Oh, wow.
I'm just trying, removing some. Okay, removing some properties, but it seems
What
that there
did
is some
you-
offset.
Yeah.
So we have, so this one fits perfectly. This is too low, and this is too high. So there is some offset going on compared to our. Ooh, no, but we. Yeah, now it looks different again in the preview page.
It would be interesting to sort of see what this print browser situation does, because why does it reformat it this way? It would be nice to see behind the code and sort of counter it, but we have no idea what it pulls and why it does it.
Maybe it's let's search if we have some. I'm searching for the text print. Maybe we have some CSS left that. So we have here one media print, but all of this is. We collapse some buttons, some sidebars, so that they are not visible, and all the buttons collapsing so that they are not part of the printed. And we have. No, there isn't really something that could cause it. Well, we could. Would it make sense to have a? No. I'm not sure. This is not square, right? No. No. It's
No.
Not. I'm quite unsure, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that might be something for our next session. Because other than that, I think we're done, right?
Other than that, so it's close. It's really close. And if we bring if we de-absolute our tables, we should actually have a 2-page printable. Not yet. So for the print, I guess we need a bit of a table margin so that it actually comes to a second page.
Good job.
So let's do. We do have the media print here. So perhaps for the table image, we could do a bit of a margin. So that's top left,
right,
bottom, top right, bottom.
Maybe it's top left, bottom right, and then it would explain why. Okay.
I think it's clockwise.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And let's give that a go. No,
but they're still distorted.
So they are now on two. Okay, so we have, so we have to figure out the distortion.
Yeah.
And we do have a little bit of extra margin here. We get rid of that. We actually started a different branch where we started from a cleaner template, where we didn't inherit anything from the template, and there this margin is gone. So when we switch to that, this will be fixed, and then we only take care of the distortion. But yeah, this will be some playing around with CSS
Yay.
that we need to fix in the next
Couple of
1, 2,
days.
3, 4, 5 days. Actually 4.
Easy.
We should release it before the 1st.
Yeah, so you have time to fill your calendar as well with your links. And then obviously give it to the person you want to gift it to. Okay, but I really still enjoyed this session, particularly like the bit about like nullable warnings, because that's something I'd obviously heard of, and I'd done the question marks, but just because the Visual Studio told me to, and I didn't really know the words behind it, so that was really interesting. And we're almost there. So again, I really loved how far we got in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, and also we have a little announcement, I guess, because is it in a week? Is it on the 3rd of December, correct?
It is,
No.
yes.
Yes.
So we're part of the festive tech calendar this year. And on Saturday, the 3rd December, yeah. Is it Saturday? It should be Saturday.
It is
so in
Saturday,
a week,
yeah,
yes.
I think.
We will have a session on our QRlendar.
Yeah, I think where we're gonna talk about like how we built it, and obviously if you've been to every session, some of it might be a repetition, but I think it's nice to sort of like round it off and see the different components and how we approached it, and also we're gonna assemble it then. So
Yes.
you're gonna see me glue the AdventQRlendar together, and I think it's gonna be a really fun session. I think it's a really cool event. It's for a charity, if I remember correctly. Yes, it says it down here, which is UK based and helps families who it's about missing people. It helps find those people and reunite families, and it's, I think, a really cool charity and a really good event to support it. So if you have time, if you're free, why don't you give us a check in there? And yeah, anything other than that? Thank you so much for joining.
My last word will be by then. So we will fix this one little issue with the distortion of the QR code, and then we will publish the code also to this repository. So I put into the chat the link to the festive tech calendar, and I'll also put a link to this repository, which then will contain also a link. Then once we figured it out, to the application, to the deployed application, so that you can run it without needing to build it locally on your machine.
Amazing.
And this has been my last words. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again, and we'll be back.